Gentlemen of the Octagon, it has already been more than 6 years since the loudest and most significant event in the history of mixed martial arts, and of the strongest league in particular. But how did yesterday's friends suddenly turn into bitter enemies? Let's dive in. Make yourselves comfortable, because ahead lies the full story of the conflict between the scandalous Irishman and the Dagestani Eagle. Back then, nobody could have even imagined that years later we would be discussing this rivalry as something that truly happened, and not as a fantasy matchup like KHABIB versus Tony. In the beginning, there wasn't the slightest hint of hostility between these two athletes. The Dagestani made his UFC debut in January 2012, competing successfully until April 2014. Why focus on this period? It's simple. After his 6th victory inside the league, Nurmagomedov hit a rough patch filled with injuries and constant difficulties. For more than 2 years, he was unable to compete, and even regular training became nearly impossible. Meanwhile, Conor McGregor entered the UFC in April 2013. Despite serious setbacks like a torn cruciate ligament, he pushed to recover and return as quickly as possible. In old fight footage, you can even spot KHABIB standing near the fans section by the Octagon, recording Conor's walkouts on his phone. At that time, the two supported each other openly on social media, exchanging words of encouragement whenever one of them hit a rough spot. There's even a famous photo online of KHABIB posing with Conor after McGregor's victory over Dustin Poirier in September 2014. This alone shows that as long as they were fighting in different divisions, things were fine. Their paths didn't cross directly, and neither stood in the way of the other's career growth. But tensions began to rise in 2015. That year, during an interview, KHABIB was asked how a fight with McGregor would go if it ever happened. He smiled and said, "I like Conor, but if he comes up to our division, I'll smash him in 4 minutes, no problem. He's a striker, and I like his style. Honestly, I think he can even beat Jose Aldo, maybe even finish him. But if he comes to lightweight, welcome." At the same time, McGregor's star was exploding. By July 2015, he had captured the interim featherweight title. That night, he addressed the fans. "Thank you all for the huge support. It means everything to us. Tonight was historic. We broke records again. The biggest numbered event of the year. It's been a wonderful year for me, my team, my family, and the organization. I want to congratulate and thank the entire UFC for the enormous work they do behind the scenes every time. Thank you very much." Still, when asked about his friend KHABIB, Conor cut straight to the point. "In this game, there are no friends. There's only business." At the same time, he did not rule out the possibility that Nurmagomedov could one day win the lightweight title, which meant their paths would inevitably collide. While KHABIB continued his long recovery, McGregor wasted no time. He announced that he wanted to move up to lightweight and challenge for a second belt, which at that time belonged to Rafael dos Anjos. "This man to my right has a title, and nothing else. Of course, the fight will be interesting. But inside the cage, he has nothing to offer me. I'll take his belt." The UFC happily granted Conor this chance, skipping him ahead of all the top 5 contenders and straight into a title fight. Naturally, this outraged the best lightweights on the planet, but no one could do anything. Conor's name alone meant astronomical ratings and profits that no other fighter could generate, even combined. There were only 2 men who posed a real challenge to this rise. Tony Ferguson, who had racked up 7 wins in a row, and KHABIB Nurmagomedov, who was finally preparing to return in the first half of 2016. The UFC saw the opportunity and decided to pit the Eagle against El Chuchuy, while Conor was on his way to becoming the first ever double champion. After 2 years of absence, KHABIB was eager to prove himself. "It's very hard for me to talk about this. I haven't fought in 2 years, and now I'm very excited. I know fans are wondering what I'll look like when I come back. I personally asked the UFC for the strongest opponent, and they told me they had Tony Ferguson with 7 straight wins." "Let's go," Conor said. And indeed, things started moving quickly. The Irishman's title fight had to be delayed, and Khabib's matchup with Ferguson also fell apart. Both fighters lost their scheduled opponents and had to take short-notice replacement bouts instead. On March 5, 2016, McGregor was stunned at UFC 196, losing by submission. Meanwhile, the Dagestani Eagle returned in April, dominating Darrell Horcher to secure his 7th consecutive victory since debuting in the UFC. "I feel like I spent the past 2 years in prison," Khabib said afterward. "But the most important thing is that I'm free now. I'm ready for my title opportunity. I'm very happy to be back. Every time I walk to the cage, I'm overwhelmed with emotions, and today I'm just really, really happy." But his joy was short-lived. To Khabib's disappointment, all the spotlight shifted once again to McGregor. On August 20th, 2016, the Irishman faced the Stockton gangster, Nate Diaz, in a highly anticipated rematch. McGregor won by majority decision, famously proclaiming, "Surprise, surprise, the expletive king is back." And just like that, Khabib's winning streak and Ferguson's rise were pushed out of the spotlight. The moment Conor regained his victorious status, he was offered a spot in the lightweight title picture. Not only offered, but handed the chance to jump past the legitimate #1 contender from Dagestan, who already had a contract lined up. Can you imagine that? In November at UFC 205, Khabib Nurmagomedov was originally supposed to face Eddie Alvarez, who had dethroned Rafael dos Anjos and was ready to defend his belt. But suddenly, the UFC rewrote the script. They pulled Khabib aside and gave the golden opportunity to their biggest star, Conor McGregor. Khabib was instead handed a fight with Michael Johnson. This sparked outrage. In a heated backstage moment, Khabib let Johnson know exactly how he felt. "I hope you're really happy to see me, because you know you've been played in this game. UFC sent me 2 contracts, one for Alvarez and one for McGregor. And you know what? You were just a pawn. You know it's true. I told you and your whole team the same thing." Johnson, surprised, asked how Khabib even knew about it. "Because I've been in this industry for a long time," Khabib replied. "I know people. I have connections. And I've seen this company's games. They're using you." The frustration was clear. Khabib had been waiting for his fight with McGregor for nearly 2 years, and still he wasn't getting it. "I was promised a title fight," Khabib said. "But instead, they gave it to a media showman. Do you really believe this is fair? I've earned my shot." Just before the official weigh-ins, the exhausted Dagestani crossed paths with the Irishman backstage. Looking him in the eyes, Khabib told Conor directly, "One day, I'll smash your face." Meanwhile, Conor was already hyping things up in his own way. At the UFC 205 press conference, he boasted, "There are 6 million people in Ireland. There are 150 million Russians. I want to fight your chicken." He's the easiest fight in the lightweight division. That night, both men fought on the same card. Khabib took care of Michael Johnson with a dominant performance, but Conor, fighting later in the main event, stole all the headlines. McGregor dismantled Eddie Alvarez, becoming the first ever 2-division champion in UFC history. Another pay-per-view record shattered, another mountain of money earned, for both McGregor and the UFC. While other fighters were left circling, forced to fight each other in hopes of one day catching the organization's attention, Conor had already checked out. With 2 belts in hand, he announced a new challenge, stepping away from MMA to conquer the world of boxing. His target? None other than Floyd Mayweather. "We're going to put on the biggest fight in the history of combat sports," Conor promised. "I believe Conor can beat Floyd," Khabib said. "You might laugh, but it's true. I believe it." Meanwhile, in the octagon world, everyone accepted as fact that Conor would be absent for an indefinite period. No one planned to strip him of the title. Everyone else, fighters, matchmakers, and the league itself, would simply wait patiently for his return. For Khabib, the UFC could only offer another shot at Tony Ferguson, the 3rd attempt at that point, scheduled for March 4th, 2017, at UFC 209. On the line was the interim lightweight championship. "I'm 100% sure this is a real title fight," Khabib said. I'm not worried. You know, Dana White just handed Conor a gift, and he jumped everyone to take the belt. Whatever he did against Alvarez, that's fake to me. Right now, we have a real fight. This is the people's main event, the biggest fight of 2017. But misfortune struck again. In October, Ferguson had to withdraw from the bout due to injury. KHABIB stepped into the cage against Kevin Lee and submitted him with a triangle choke, claiming the interim championship. The undisputed gold, however, still belonged to McGregor. The Eagle had no choice but to continue waiting, recovering, and preparing for another victory, one that would finally bring him closer to his shot at the title. On December 30th, KHABIB faced Edson Barboza at UFC 200. Now, this is a real contender fight, he said. We're both top 5 fighters. After I beat him, I'll fight for the title. I want to finish this year and start the next one as the #1 contender. Around the same time, rumors began swirling online, a so-called nuclear bomb of news, hinting at uncertainty in the fight schedule. Comparing KHABIB to Conor, some claimed even his close friends and sparring partners were caught off guard. For 12 weeks leading up to the fight, KHABIB faced constant disruptions. Fighters pulled out, minor injuries, weight issues, all while fans from across the world flew in, only to see nothing. And yet, Conor continued to show up no matter what, never missing a step, despite injuries or difficulties. Finally, the UFC 200 card went ahead. KHABIB exhausted and defeated the Brazilian, and the moment passed quietly, unnoticed by the media. In a private conversation, his coach reminded him, "You need to focus. You're too relaxed. You're smiling too much." KHABIB replied calmly, "I'm fine, coach. I just want to enjoy this time, because the last time I fought was over 2 years ago. I need to savor it." By 2018, the UFC finally recognized that waiting indefinitely for McGregor was impossible. The Irishman was stripped of the lightweight title, leaving the championship vacant for UFC 223 in April. The fight was supposed to be between KHABIB and Tony Ferguson for the 4th time. KHABIB remarked, "I think something epic is coming. I hope so." When Ferguson withdrew just a week before the fight, tearing his ACL during an interview, the UFC scrambled to find a short-notice replacement. Negotiations were frantic, and the public was left on edge, wondering who would step in. Meanwhile, KHABIB, already frustrated from years of setbacks and delays, crossed paths with another fighter, Artem Lobov, in a hotel corridor. He confronted him over comments made months earlier, but, thankfully, managed to restrain himself. A full-blown fight was narrowly avoided. The stage was set. The tension, the drama, and the countless obstacles KHABIB had faced only heightened the anticipation. Every delay, every cancellation, every injustice had been building toward a moment that would finally define the Eagle's destiny. However, KHABIB did not deny himself the satisfaction of slapping Artem for the unpleasant words he had said about him. Then, suddenly, just a few days before the main event, Max Holloway, the reigning featherweight champion and a true pride of the sport, agreed to step in. This was a fighter with no temporary titles. The winner would walk away as the undisputed champion. Only a few hours after Dana White's press conference went public, while fighters were cutting weight for the weigh-in, chaos erupted. Conor McGregor attacked the bus carrying KHABIB, his team, and several other fighters who were scheduled to compete that night. The actions were indefensible. Innocent athletes were injured despite having no connection to the conflict. Michael Chiesa suffered cuts on his head and face, while Ray Borg was also hurt. A local staff member was injured, and everyone was shocked that about 30 aggressors had stormed the building where fighters were finishing preparations for the tournament. At the same time, clips of KHABIB's reaction appeared online. Calm but firm, he sent messages to his opponent. "Send me a message. Tell me where you are. Set a time and place. I am waiting." The next day, on weigh-in day, KHABIB faced another obstacle. He lost his dietitian, George Lockhart, due to a conflict of interest since he was working more closely with Max Holloway. Despite the disruption, KHABIB successfully made weight. His opponent, however, could not and withdrew for medical reasons. UFC was again in a tight spot, initially negotiating with Anthony Pettis. Pettis demanded an astronomically high price without guaranteeing conditions required for a title fight. As the tournament seemed doomed, UFC rushed to find a replacement. They turned to Al Iaquinta, one of the few willing to step in, and luckily the Athletic Commission approved his weight. For KHABIB, it didn't matter who stood across from him. He just wanted to fight, win, and claim the undisputed lightweight championship. KHABIB defeated Iaquinta and finally realized his dream. Then came the build-up to the most anticipated fight. KHABIB said, "I can't believe this is finally happening. I've wanted to humble this guy and give him a lesson for a long time. Not just beat him, but completely change him, his mind, his approach. That's what I'm going to do." The bus incident did not fade into the background. After a brief legal process, fines, and community service, the main promotion took full control of the situation. Against a backdrop of a rich history and wild hype, the news of the confrontation only heightened the anticipation. Finally, on August 3rd, the announcement was made. KHABIB Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor would face off in the octagon on October 6th at UFC 229, with the lightweight championship on the line. KHABIB viewed it as somewhat personal, but not out of unnecessary hatred. He knew his opponent was just a coward hiding behind a crowd, and he was determined to make him pay. "Everything started because he was my fan," KHABIB explained. "He bought my shirts, supported me on social media, and said there was nothing personal. But now he's my opponent, and there's nowhere to run. I came here to put him down, in the name of all Russian people." That day, I looked at him through the windows of that damn bus and showed him my hands, unarmed. That was the first thing I did, to make it clear. "Get out of the bus, you started this game, and here I am," KHABIB said. But Conor did nothing. He sat in the bus, hiding behind the women who were there. Everyone knew what a coward he was. So that's how it was. You tapped like a chicken 3 or 4 times, and now I'll be tapping your head. You tapped like a chicken, and now your head is going to feel it. He went on. He has a glass jaw. My friends from Chechnya told me Dagestanis have crystal chins, and I believe them because I've seen it for myself. I've seen his jaw shake from ordinary punches. I've seen it countless times, watched his brother fight in promotions, and I know he fears a solid hit. And if you're scared of my strike, you'll feel it like a shotgun blast. I believe in my power, but once I already made a mistake. Now, I'm ready for 5 rounds. Look at a veteran fighter. I've been through everything, seen all kinds of brawls, in boxing and here. Now I'll shine again in this place. I'll break this guy's glass chin, just like I did to the glass that scratched Michael Chiesa. This is my 3rd fight in 9 months. I haven't lost a single round." He continued, "I don't understand what he thinks he can do on October 6th. He believes whiskey will help him win. I don't understand what he wants." He knew what he was signing up for, in a city with crazy traffic. "Conor rushed here at full speed to see all of you, and he made it. That little guy? Whatever. He ran, as usual. What else could we expect from him? But in the octagon, he won't be able to run. I won't shake his hand when it's over. Never." "Why?" he asked rhetorically. "Because you think he's a fake champion? Obviously, he beat a non-ranked guy and isn't ashamed to wear that belt. It doesn't belong to him. Even he knows there's only one champion here, me. Don't let that little rat fool you." KHABIB continued, more calmly. "It feels good to be back, friends. The king has returned home. First, I want to say Alhamdulillah. He gave me everything. Alhamdulillah. I will destroy him. I want to thank all the Irish fans and fans around the world. Without you, none of this would have happened. Thank you. And tomorrow, inshallah, I'm the champion. This is the biggest thing in MMA right now. I know you're tired of hearing me talk about it every day for the last 2 weeks. Numbers are growing, and I'm curious where this will go. I'll talk to him differently. I'll humble him. I'll give him a leg check to make him understand. He will quickly realize he's in for a very long night. I'm not just going to wear him out. I'll drain him to the last drop and then crush him." The tension, anticipation, and nervous energy reached unimaginable levels. The two sides faced off, crossing all barriers, fully armed with determination and intent. After the fight, Khabib demanded, "Give me my belt. I'm the champion. Where's my belt?" The crowd's reaction was chaotic. UFC 229 became the loudest, most scandalous event in league history. Khabib explained his thoughts. "I was worried about fans, journalists, everyone around. Instinctively, I felt if I put that belt on him, it would cause a collapse. First, I want to apologize to the Nevada Athletic Commission and Vegas. I know this wasn't my best side. But I'm human. My father taught me to respect everyone. My coaches, my team, my friends in California for the last 7 years know who I am, and they won't let anything happen. I told you guys, not just him, his whole team. They're machines for submission. As soon as you put them in a tough spot, they submit immediately. When I took his neck, locked in the choke, he tapped. I couldn't understand. Thousands of people came from Ireland to see this, and he taps, and then talks about legacy, about being a warrior. He could have tapped better, but he just tapped, and I realized I needed to take his heart too." Conor and Khabib never reconciled, and it's unlikely they ever will. What they did leave behind, however, were unforgettable emotions and a feat no one else in this sport had achieved.